first tutorial about random numbers, we saw how we could use a little formula to create a number between 0 and 9, or between 1 and 10. But what happens if we want a different kind of range, one not beginning with either 0 or 1, for example? Well, we can do that, but we need to adjust our random number formula. So I've still got the same integer variable to store the random number generated, and I've still turned on the randomize or the random generator, so that every time we run our program, a different set of random numbers will appear. Without this line here, we're going to get the same set of numbers every single time we run our code. So if I put this into a loop again, rise integer equals 1 to, let's say, 20. Now, I want to output on each iteration of this loop a random number. So console.writeLine, convert to a string for the console window, and then whatever we've got in the random number variable. Now, the line that's going to generate a random number here is as follows. We're going to assign to the random number variable the following. Now, don't worry if you don't quite understand what's happening here. Let's run the program first of all and see what it's done. As you can see, I've got 20 numbers. The range of those numbers is 50 being the lower bound and 55 being the upper bound. You can also see that I've got almost all the numbers generated in between. It doesn't look like I've got a 51, but I've got 52, 53, and 54. If I close it and run it a second time, you can see now I've got 51s, but my lower bound is still 50. That's the lowest value that's generated, and the highest value that's generated is still 55. So let's look at the formula to create this more specialized range. So what we've done first of all is take the upper bound. This is the maximum value that we want generated. In this case, I've chosen 55. We subtract from that the lower bound, or the number that we want to generate as the lowest. If I add +1 to the end here, then my range of 50 being the lowest and 55 being the highest is what's called an inclusive range. Both 50 could be generated and 55 could be generated, and obviously any whole number in between that range could be generated too. We multiply that range by the R&D function, and then again, to ensure that our starting value, the lowest value we could generate, I'm just going to go +50, plus that lower bound. So if I put a comment here, the formula, if I put as a comment, the formula we are using is convert to an integer after we've extracted the whole number only, the upper bound or the maximum value minus the lower bound or the minimum value plus 1. That gives us the minimum and maximum values in the range that we want to be able to generate. We multiply that range by the R&D function, and then we add the minimum value, again to ensure that the lowest value generated is, in this case, 50, and the maximum number we generate in this particular example is 55.